To all who come here, welcome. You are listening to the Mouse Knows Best podcast, your weekly dose of all things Disney.
Hello, and welcome to the Mouse Knows Best podcast. This is episode 14. Today, we are joined by a special guest, Lee Cockerel. He is the former Executive Vice President of Operations of Walt Disney World Resort and has been a Senior Operations Executive for the last 10 years. He's been out of Walt Disney World, but he's been doing a lot of participation with him. Lee, can you give us a little background on yourself?
Well, yeah, great to be with you. I tell everybody I was the most likely not to succeed when I was in high school. And when I made a C, my mother would bake a cake. So I grew up on a little farm. We were dirt poor. We didn't even have indoor plumbing. And my mother was married 5 times, and I've been adopted twice. I got my name Cockerel when I was 16 from husband number 4. So he was a doctor, so she had better judgment later on and started making better choices. So I got to go to college because he had money. And since I wasn't a very good student, my mother said she wasn't going to pay for those grades. So I went in the Army in 1964. And when I got out of the Army, I had met a guy in the Army. He was going to be a chef at the Washington Hilton up in D.C. And he said, "You want to go with me?" And I said, "Sure." So we drove to Washington and went over to the Washington Hilton the day after we got there and applied for jobs. And they gave me a job as a banquet waiter. 20 years old. And I worked for Hilton. I finally got into a management training program after a couple of years and met my wife there. She was in the office next door to mine. She used to come over and use my pencil sharpener, so that's how I found her. And I got into management, and then I stayed went from Washington to Chicago to the Waldorf Astoria in New York to Los Angeles to Philadelphia and all over the place. And then I joined Marriott after 8 years at Hilton. Spent 17 years with Marriott, became vice president of food and beverage operations for them, and got recruited by Disney in 1990. And when I went home, asked my wife if she wanted what she thought about me interviewing with Disney. They wanted me to go to France, to Paris, to open that new park. She said, "Absolutely, let's go."
We have a Facebook group, fans of Disney. Bridget Ashley asked a question. She wanted to know how you developed your love of Disney when you were employed there or before.
Well, of course, I was there way back when. I watched the Mickey Mouse Club every day, of course, when I was a young kid, and we watched Sunday Night Disney every Sunday, and I think everybody grows up loving Disney. Now, if you told me I'd ever work at Disney or that I'd be running Walt Disney World operations, I would say you were the craziest guy in the world. So, I loved it. And it was intriguing when they called. My wife said, "Lee, let's go because Disney's great. You get to work for them. We get to live in Paris and they're going to pay you." So, and and actually, when you first join Disney, you don't appreciate it as much as after you're there and just see all the kind of the wonderment and the fantasy, and the kids so happy they can't stand it, and the parents so happy their kids are happy. So it's quite a place every day to go out into the park and watch the parade and watch the people experiencing Disney for the first time or coming back. And so I would say on most days I had a great time. Not every day, but most days.
Well, Lee, it says here on your website that I'm looking at that, and you mentioned as well that you started off really involved with Disneyland Paris. I just want to get kind of your thoughts on what went into the process of developing Disneyland Paris, and how does that process differ from developing a park, in America?
Well, the product side was developed the same way. I mean, they chose different attractions and shows, and of course they had to be in French, and when we opened the hotels, we opened 6 hotels, 1,000 rooms each. All the menus had to be in 5 languages. We had to have staff, our front desk for check-in with 5 languages. That was pretty complex. Having employees that spoke each language, because that's where our guests were coming from Spain and UK and Germany and the Netherlands and France, of course, and then UK. So we needed all of them, and that was pretty tough. That was pretty tough. And there was no culture there. Nobody there worked for Disney. and they didn't know Disney like Americans do. So, starting a new culture is pretty hard. You got to really do a lot of training, a lot of role modeling, and a lot of explaining, because you talk to somebody in the United States about Disney, they know exactly what you're talking about. Over there, they didn't grow up with Disney the way we did. So that was creating that Disney culture was challenging some days.
Right. It also says here that you are conducting seminars on behalf of the Disney Institute. You want to explain to everyone what exactly the Disney Institute is?
Yeah, Disney Institute started back in the 90s, late 80s, and it was going to originally be a place where couples and hotel guests could come and take classes, how to, a wine course or how to use a computer or cooking classes, and that didn't work. People didn't want to do that, and so we turned it into a business, and now it's for corporate market. It's coming to learn about leadership, management, customer service, how to inspire your employees, how to train your employees, how to set the expectations, and it's extremely successful. It's really become a Disney Institute for people who want to learn how to be a better leader, better manager, and how to implement better customer service, and they really do seminars all over the world now.
And I'm guessing that background inspires your books that you've written. You want to talk about your books that you've written?
Yeah, I always wanted to write a book, but then I was so insecure, I didn't think I had anything to say. I thought everybody, since I could barely read one when I was in school, I didn't know how I could write one. But I ran into a lady who read some of my work, and I was writing a lot at Disney, a newsletter and different things. And I wrote a document called the Disney Great Leader Strategies while I was at Disney that Disney used to train the managers and employees. And that became the basis for my first book, which is called Creating Magic, 10 Common Sense Leadership Strategies from a Life at Disney. And so I got that one done. That took a couple of years because I had to deal with Disney lawyers. And that was not the magical side, but they were pretty good. And so we got that book published. It's in 17 languages now and all over the world. And it just got published in Russia. So I'm hoping Vladimir Putin will read it and become a better leader. But I doubt if he will. So we did that, and then it really did well, and it's still doing well. A lot of universities and colleges now use it as a textbook, and we developed a teacher's guide to go with it, and it's doing great. And then Random House, who published my book, came to me and said they wanted me to write a book on customer service. And I told them, no, it's too hard to write books. I don't want to do it. But they talked me into it. So that one only took 9 months because I didn't have to go through Disney on that one. So got that done and got that published, and it's doing really well out there. And I do some seminars based on those two books. And then I published last year one called Time Management Magic, how to get more done every day. And it's really about how to improve your management skills and organizational skills, and really work on your priorities in your life, and how do you keep your promises and have credibility and reliability and follow up and do the things you say you're going to do. So that book has really struck home with college students and a lot of people in business, because people are so disorganized. It's incredible. And most people don't get a time management course in high school or college, and it's probably the thing they need the most. We end up educating people, and they know a lot, but they can't get anything done. So that's wrote those 3 books, and I got one underway, which I'm going to publish this year sometime, and it's going to be around career management, how to manage your career and deal with all those ups and downs and disappointments and getting passed over and fired and having problems with your boss and all that stuff. I've had all of those. So I thought I'd just write a good little book for young people coming out of college, and a lot of managers out there that they shouldn't think it's a breeze. It's like a roller coaster, a career. It goes ups and downs and all around. You don't know where it's going to end up, but you got to really learn how to deal with it and not overreact, and pick yourself up and get back to work. And if you got a bad boss, I always tell people either stay and do a good job or look for a new job. So, or hope something happens to your boss. I mean, not anything that would kill them, but sometimes you think about that.
Oh.
Yeah, Lee, I'm actually a junior in college right now, so I'm gonna have to check out your book about time management for sure. And
I suggested it will change the way you look at things. I get a letter every day from people. My grandson's a junior at University of Miami,
Okay.
And we had him go through the time management course. I had my son go through it before he went to college 25 years ago. And I told my son, I want you to come to this time management class because I'm only paying for 4 years. So you better go to class, tell the professor he's doing a good job. That's how real life works. He'll give you a better grade, and sit on the front row so somebody knows who you are.
Right.
And a lot of people, they take those classes, they sit up in the back, they don't make any. I just continually am trying to tell young people the value of creating relationships and contacts, because that's how you're probably going to get your job. It's not going to be on an online application process, which I think are totally useless. So,
right.
Yeah.
Hey, Lee, it's Joe. I have a question, personal question. As a fan of Disney myself, and someday dreaming to retire and maybe work for Walt Disney World in the future, what advice would you give somebody like myself who is in a career already but plans to in the future really get into what they dream doing, and that would be being a customer service, or in my dream would be to eventually maybe be on the crew who runs the Walt Disney World Railroad?
Well, there you go. I get that question all the time, and I tell a lot of people it's pretty difficult to join Disney at a high level because they have 72,000 cast members over there now, and about half of them have college degrees, and they're waiting in line for their shot to get into management. And Disney gets so many applications. But I tell young people, the best way, I would say, my son is at Disney, and he joined right out of college. He actually worked for Disney before I did. And he's now the vice president of the Magic Kingdom. But he started in an hourly job parking cars. And after I'd spent $100,000 on his education at Boston University. So, but I like that. I liked him learning the business. And so I tell people, you either get lucky and you get into a fairly high level job if you got some talent and skill that they're looking for at the time. But most often people need to come in, and I say probably when they're younger, and get started so they can kind of move up in the organization, because not many people leave Disney. So there's not a lot of opportunity. People stay. They want to get promoted. Turnover is extremely low in management at Disney. And executive turnover is like less than 1%. And I mean, it's a good life living in Florida, no state income tax. You work at Disney. They have a good health care plan, and you can have a good career, and you just have to go to a new parking lot if you get promoted. You don't have to move. You don't have to call United Van Lines. So I'd say, or make sure, and really for college kids, I tell them you got to get the experience while they're going to college, work in hotels, work in restaurants, work in businesses that do that kind of work, because it'll help you on your resume. And Disney has a college program where they employ 10,000 college students every year, or twice a year for 6 months, and they can get college credits. And the kids who do that, I would say 85-90% of Disney management comes out of the Disney college program. And so there's a few different ways. But occasionally, if somebody's got a certain talent, we hired the head of transportation for the city of San Francisco to come and run our transportation. So he got in, and now he's running the Animal Kingdom Park. So he got promoted into that. So it just, I think it's like any big company, great company today. It's not as easy as some people might think. But on the other hand, you got to decide what you're willing to do for a while to get some experience to get your foot in the door.
Exactly. You got to do your time to get your rewards.
Yeah, exactly.
Lee, it says here on your website that one of your major and lasting legacies was the creation of the Disney Great Leader Strategies, which was used to train and develop the 7,000 leaders at Walt Disney World. First of all, what are the Disney Great Leader Strategies? And second of all, how in the world do you train and develop over 7,000 leaders at Walt Disney World?
Well, the reason I wrote that document was we'd gone through some reorganization there, and there wasn't enough clarity around the behavior we wanted from our leaders of being available for their people and being respectful and being inclusive and listening and training. And so I worked on that for about a year, and there's 12 strategies in there. One of them is about how to take care of people and how to make people feel special at work. There's second strategies on how to hire better, what kind of things to talk about when you hire people, how you set the expectation. Another one is about training, how to train appropriately and test. Train, test, and enforce the training. That's what Disney does well. And and then there's one about how to really pay attention to the metrics and the financial work. And there's one on policies, procedures, and operating guidelines. And there's one on how not to hassle your customers and not hassle your employees. And so we got everybody on the same page. And I actually, after it was finished, I trained my direct reports, and then I gave them 3 weeks to train their direct reports, and the people after them had 3 weeks, and we rolled it all the way down, and we started hiring better people, and we started getting rid of people who weren't performing, and slowly but surely the culture and the environment at Disney got a whole lot better. And we always say, customer doesn't come first, leadership comes first. And when we got better leaders, everything got better. When you get people, as people say, you don't work for a company, you work for your boss, or you work for a leader. And if that leader's great, you're great, you do good. And we still know that 75% of people who leave jobs leave because of their boss, because of their leader. And not because they didn't like the company, but they got into a situation where they just couldn't work with the person who was responsible for them. So, yeah, the great leader strategies, and I still use it today. And it's basically my book, Creating Magic, is basically those strategies translated into a more generic way that people can use it in just about any business, whether it's a hospital or a college, a gas station, a convenience store, it doesn't matter. And it's a real good guide, and that's why I think the colleges have started using it, and because students are really tired of theory. They want the facts. They want, how does it really work? Don't have a professor who hadn't been in the workplace for 30 years teaching me theory.
Amen.
And so I think this practicality, storytelling is becoming a way that people are starting to understand that that's really a powerful way to educate, storytelling and giving examples, real life examples.
It says here that from 1993 to 95, you were the senior vice president of the hotel division at Walt Disney World. And I'm just curious, do you have a favorite hotel at Walt Disney World?
As they opened, I kind of had different. I think today, if I had to choose one, I liked the Animal Kingdom Lodge.
Mm-hmm.
I took my grandson there when he was just a little boy. He was 5 or 6 years old. He's 21 now. And he told me, he said, "Pappy, I just saw 2 giraffes kiss each other." Well, they were both eating out of the same tree. So he thought they were kissing. But, yeah, I like that hotel, and I like Wilderness Lodge a lot. It's really a dramatic lobby and a lot of fun. And Grand Floridian, it's a great hotel, and it's good, but I kind of like the hotels that are a little more downscale. I'm not into, so much. You almost got to pay attention to your own behavior when you're at the Grand Floridian, and you got to kind of dress properly and stuff, it seems like. So I like to go to places where I can do what I want.
I understand that.
That's great. I have another question from one of our co-podcast hosts here, Jared. He wants to find out what your thoughts are on the recent expansion of the Walt Disney World with the Star Wars land that's been announced at the Disney parks.
Well, I have to be a big, of course, Star Wars that movie was absolutely incredible. I don't know what it ended up doing, $1.5 billion. And then you start to think about the merchandise. And my son was the vice president of the studio when they started that project. So, of course, I was all for it. But then he moved over to the Magic Kingdom. But, it's going to be a gold mine. Star Wars. This thing is, Disney doesn't do too many misses. And, Star Wars, just from the movie alone, you can just imagine what's going to happen. And so, yeah, it's great. And, of course, every kid loves it. And I said, if the kids love it, the parents love it, because there's nothing that makes parents happier than their children being happy. So
that is definitely true.
If you can make kids happy, you got the parents locked up forever.
That's true. Right. That is true. Another question I had, sir, is in your tenure where you were at Disney, did you practice like a management by walking around type of approach? Did you visit a lot of the parks that you oversee and interact with the employees and the customers directly, or was it mostly just an back office? Like I think like Walt used to do a lot of the walking. Walt Disney used to do a lot of walking around. So I was just curious about how you feel about that type of management.
Well, I do, because certainly I would say the main reason I was successful in my career are two things. I have a really good attitude. Nothing really gets to me too much. I'm a pretty positive guy all the time, and I'm very organized. And of course, I grew up in the business. I've been a cook, I've been a waiter, I've been a housekeeper, I've made beds. So I feel very comfortable out in the operations, whether it's back in the back or whether it's in the kitchen or the storeroom or out front. And I've done all those jobs. And maybe that's a good thing I didn't get a college degree, because I now really have a deep understanding of the hard work people have to do in those jobs. And so I scheduled every week. I scheduled time 3 or 4 days a week. I'd go out to the parks for 4 hours and walk the parks, sometimes alone, sometimes with my grandkids, sometimes with the vice president. But I saw a lot of things. I experienced it as a guest. I went to the hotels. I walked the hotels. We inspected rooms. And I got to talk to people. That's why I went out, talk to the employees, see what's going on. They'd tell me, they saw me a lot. So I got a lot of good feedback about what we needed to change, what we need to do better, what was working, what was not working, what they wondered, who in the world created this policy. And so I got lots of feedback, and I had a confidential voicemail in my office that anybody could leave me a message, and it was publicized all over the parks and hotels. You can leave a message. You don't have to leave your name. I won't be able to track you. It's totally confidential, and just, I want to know the issues. If you want to leave your name, God bless you. If you don't worry. And I got messages every day. People telling me, Lee, you need to look into this, or my boss is a jerk, or And so I dealt with them, and the word got out that I was available, I was accessible, and that I followed up when I got feedback on something that needed to be handled. And so, I think it's critical. If you don't get a comfortable relationship with the staffs of your business, it's hard for them to trust you, because they don't know you well enough. And they saw me all the time. I would say that, I see them, hear from some of them sometime, and ask me to come back, but I tell them no. I have to have a nap every day now. So,
Lee, I just now discovered, and I think this is incredible. You have an iPhone app, right?
I do.
You want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, it's I did this app. My app came out when there were only 8,000 apps in the world. And so I found a couple up in Toronto, and they did apps, and I worked with them, and we did a deal to split the fee 50-50, and I wrote all the content, and they developed it. And if you have that app every day, it has 4 or 5 categories. It'll give you advice on how to be a better leader, how to be a better manager, tell you something to do today. It might tell you today, go home and tell your wife you love her, or it might tell you when you get to work today, why don't you go around and tell the employees how much you appreciate them. It's just little reminders of the things that sometimes we forget. It reminds you of holidays coming up and all those kinds of things, so you don't forget Valentine's Day or your wife's birthday. So it's been a lot of fun to have that. Yeah.
And you also have a podcast, correct?
I do. I didn't even know what a podcast was a year and a half ago. And this fellow called me, Jody Mayberry, and said, I'd like to interview you for my podcast. He does one on parks, state and national park service.
Right.
And I said, okay, fine, sure. So we get on Skype, and I did the interview, and I thought that's that, and he called me back in about 2 months. He said, have you ever thought about having a podcast on your own? I said, no. I said, I'd love to have one as long as I don't have to do any work. And he said, I'll do all the work. So we recorded 2 sessions yesterday. We stay about 8 ahead all the time. And it comes out every Tuesday, and it's called Creating Disney Magic. And it's about how to be a better leader, better manager, how to improve customer service. I talk about a lot of things that people worry about. I went through some problems about over the last 6 months I came down with an anxiety problem, and I thought I'd be the last person to ever get anxiety. I was traveling too much, or I just came, and I had to get treated by it. I was seeing a psychiatrist, a psychologist, acupuncture, workouts, everything. And I did a podcast on that on January 19th, my dealing with anxiety. I heard from people all over the world. It was shocking how many people were suffering from anxiety, or their kids are, or their parents, or their grandparents. It's unbelievable. Oh. And then I did an update on it. I've gotten over it now. It took me, it took me literally 6 months of treatment to get back to normal. And I had never had anxiety in my life. And, it just struck me, and who knows? The brain is very weird. So I do subjects like that, and it really seems to help people. And a lot of college kids suffer from anxiety, the stress, and trying to pay for it, and trying to go to class and have a job, and it's just amazing. So yeah, that's I try to give the best advice I can, because if you got a medical problem, it affects your work life. Or if you have a personal problem at home, it affects your work. Or if you have a problem at work, it affects your marriage. And so I tell people, if they'll listen to my podcast and read my books, they won't have to get a divorce. So my wife told me she's going to stay. Well, so I know I'm getting better.
You're doing something right?
Yeah, exactly.
We actually have a question from Barry, our host of this show, and he says, "Do you think that Universal will ever match Disney in customer service?"
I doubt it, but Universal, let me tell you, there's a lot of people go to Universal and don't go to Disney. So if you're 13, 14, or 15 years old, that's where they're going. And a lot of people think Disney owns Universal, and they'll tell me, "Oh, we went to Universal. We had such a great time. We saw Harry Potter." And so, yeah, really? Okay, good. I hope you enjoy. But there's a whole group. I was stopped at the Turnpike the other day to get some lunch on the way to Miami, and a whole busload of kids were on their way to Universal, and they had no plans to go to Disney. But the customer service side, I think Disney's kind of hard to beat for not only Universal, anybody, a bank, brokerage firm, a grocery store. Disney, it's really hard to beat the level of service that Disney has. And I think we got the formula down, and I write about that, the formula, and I speak about that. And that's what Creating Magic Book's all about, is telling people kind of, here's how you do it. I don't care what kind of business you have. If you have 5 people, you got 500. Here's how you put a culture and an environment together to create a magical experience for your guests and for your customers. And it can be done by anybody. You just got to approach it with the right, you got to focus on the right things. And a lot of people don't have the patience to do that, or the will to, because it's hard to be great. It's easy to be average. And so if you want to be great, you got to work harder at it. And even in your career, or in your business, or in your marriage. I'm trying to convince my wife that I'm a great husband.
Well, if you can ever do that, let me know.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's how we think about it. And I think Disney Service, nothing against Universal. They have a great product over there, and they're building. There's more cranes over there now. It looks like China's building up there. Water parks and hotels, and more and more and more. So, and they do a nice job. So, and by the way, they probably help Disney too, because the more people you can bring to Orlando, the better. Because if they come to Orlando, Disney's going to get their share. Don't worry about that. Right. And I think our marketing teams, their goal is not to really get people to Disney, but just to get them to Orlando. Because if we can get you into Orlando, and we had 52 million visitors at Disney last year, and a million a week, and so that's the goal, is get you not to go anywhere else on vacation except Orlando.
That's right.
Don't go to Hawaii. Don't go to Las Vegas. Don't go to New York. Yeah.
Lee, when you look back at your years at Disney, is there a particular project that comes to mind that you like, this is the one I'm most proud of?
Well, I would tell you the one, if you had to ask me what was the most proud day of my life, and the most tragic day was 9/11. And I was in charge of the command center and opened the command center 30 minutes after the planes hit the building. And we closed the parks by 11:30 and evacuated everybody and took care of everybody for a week because nobody could fly. And what I was proud of was that we had implemented those great leader strategies. Every cast member stood up, did their job. Nobody got panicky. We really handled it perfectly that day, with safely. and got the guests back to their hotels, sent characters to the hotels to take care of the kids. There were a lot of tears, a lot of people sick to their stomach about wanting to get back to New York. Couldn't get any rental cars. No planes were flying for days, and so that was probably the best. And I think that was a project we worked on. We practice over and over every year. We practice several times a year for emergencies. But we have to open the command center in 30 minutes. We have a very systematic way we run it, how we notify the public, how we notify our cast members. So that project, we worked on that for years and years and years, how to handle hurricanes. I mean, I don't think anybody has a better safety and emergency system in place than Disney does. We got satellite radios. We got every kind of backup. I mean, I guarantee you, if you're in a hurricane, Disney's the best place to be.
Mm-hmm.
So
That's right.
It's pretty incredible.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, Lee, I want to get you out here on a kind of a fun note, and I'm just curious. Do you have a favorite attraction at Walt Disney World?
Yeah, I used to tell people when my grandkids were little, I just had to spend all my time in Fantasyland. That's where they. And then as they got older, of course, and then we could start doing everything. But I think Rock and Roller Coaster is the one I thought was just that when it starts. I mean, it's like, oh my God. And it's 1 minute of terror. And and I think the Tower of Terror was a lot of fun. And but I think that Rock and Roller Coaster, that was a good one for me. That acceleration was pretty incredible. So I like that. And and I rode Buzz Lightyear a lot with my grandkids because they wanted to try to beat me in the scoring. And they usually did, actually. So, but we rode it over and over and over and over. And then I have a granddaughter too, of course. She's going to be 18 soon. But back then we had a lot of princess interactions.
I'm sure.
And, oh my God, to watch the faces of that little girl when she met the princesses, I thought she couldn't speak. She was so stunned. So it's pretty magical to watch it when you get to watch. And my grandkids grew up in Orlando, so I got to watch it all along, to the Christmas parade, to the Halloween night, and I know how powerful the Disney product is. The kids just now they don't want us to go with them; they want to go by themselves.
And on your website, it even says that you were rewarded Grandfather of the Year from his 3 grandchildren. That's
I tell everybody they adore me. They like me better than their parents because I buy them iPhones, and when they break them, which is fairly regular, and I buy them their laptops, and so they stay in touch with me pretty carefully.
Well, Lee, we appreciate you coming on the Mouse Knows Best podcast and your insight into Disney. And I just want to let our listeners know where we can find you. You have a blog called Creating Disney Magic with Lee Cockerel, and that's at blog.leecockerel.com. And also encourage them to check out your iTunes app and also check out on your iPhone app and check out your book that you have coming out, is out, Time Management Magic.
Yeah.
And again, appreciate your time, and thanks for coming on.
And by the way, you can just send them right to the website, and it'll be easier. They can get whatever they want. LeeCockerel.com. It's all there. I thank you, guys. Good to talk to you.
Thank you, Lee.
Again. We appreciate you stopping by. Thanks, Lee.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to the Mouse Knows Best podcast. You're swell, and remember, it all started with a mouse. See you real soon.